Years ago, Bernina added what is called the personal program to their computerized sewing machines. And on the Bernina 790 Plus, I want to show you how I use the personal program. So it is all going to eventually hang out and be accessed in the heart area. So if we actually go in here, you'll see that there's ways to retrieve stitches, and there's going to be 4 categories. We'll be able to kind of group those stitches in, and then also a place to save those particular stitches. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a way that, let's say you're sewing a project. You're using a straight stitch from this menu, you're using a decorative stitch from menu 4, and then a buttonhole down here, you're doing eyelets, you're doing a stitch from the quilt menu, and you're just jumping all over this machine to find and get between, say, 3 or 4 stitches that you're using for a particular project. What if I could tell you, you could put all 4 stitches on the same page, and if you've altered those stitches, you could even have them saved at the newly altered setting, and maybe use one of those stitches in a small version and a large version. We're going to be able to take a copy of the stitch and make our own group of stitches, our own menu. So kind of like how the quilt menu was made for you, where all the quilt stitches are kind of hanging out all together. That's all fine and good, but what about the stitches you're using today? So let's just start with a straight stitch, and let's say I'm using that straight stitch at a 3.0. Let's just make it a little longer so I can show you that too. You can go over to the heart, and I need to save that, so I'm going to put it into a folder. And let's put everything into folder 1, all right? Once it shows you that stitch, check the green check mark box. So it's gone into that. Let me add a few more stitches, and then I'll show you how it works, and then also how to retrieve those stitches. So I did mention, how about a zigzag? Maybe we make that really short for a satin stitch, and we make it a little wider. Let's save that one. Touch the heart, put it into, like we're saving it into it, the memory, and it's showing a little picture of a zigzag there. Check the box. All right, let's put a buttonhole. I said that we were going to do some buttonholes, so we'll pretend we're doing that, and we'll save a buttonhole into this. Folder 1, check the box. And, you know, a lot of us do machine applique, so with the blanket stitch. But I'm going to use the really thick blanket stitch. And I do like to use my blanket stitch in the far right needle position. So when I have my open toe foot on, I just follow the inside of that toe for perfect alignment. So I'm going to save it with that needle position change. All right, and let's just do that stitch the size it is, but then I'm also going to do it like a micro size, like a really small version. And I'm going to save that one also. All right, so we have a duplicate option there. Okay, so somewhere these stitches are hanging out. We're just going to go back to a straight stitch, but now we're ready to sew through those 4 or 5 stitches we put in there. Go to the heart and retrieve, so pulling out of folder number 1. So folder number 1 now has the stitches that we are working on all on the same screen. So if I need a straight stitch, there's my straight stitch at 3.0, even says right there on the screen. My buttonhole, ready to stitch, my satin stitch of the zigzag, and my large and small version of the blanket stitch. And it even again shows me what I changed those settings to, and I can still change those or make them adjusted as needed. But look, they're just going to hang out together, and this is a lot easier than running all around your machine trying to find where that stitch went. Now let's say you don't need those stitches in your personal menu anymore. Touch the heart. You'll notice the trash can is in there. Touch the folder, and then at this point you can just touch the stitches you want to delete. If your whole project is done, you could just go ahead and delete each stitch individually, one at a time, until they were all gone. Maybe you leave those first cupful stitches in there, and then you add other stitches to that project. So when you're done, Just note that you can always kind of have project 1 going on. Maybe you have different stitches for project 2, 3, and 4. So that's why Bernina does give you 4 different folders to save 4 different kind of groups of stitches that will help keep you organized and quickly access the stitches you use the most. One extra little tip while you're sewing out your stitch book, there's a link below this YouTube video how to actually take the time to stitch out all your decorative stitches. Some of the times I get to a stitch and it's just so much cooler stitched out than I think it does look on the screen, and I'll just reach over here and I will add maybe to folder 2 a group of stitches that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to forget that those are there. Kind of do a fun group of stitches that you know you want to go back to at a later time.